Today I am so excited to interview Ingrid Leukes. Ingrid is a teacher by profession and she's also the provincial education convener for the Teachers Union in South Africa, South African Democratic Teachers Union. I'm so excited that you're joining us today, Ingrid. Looking forward to it. To get started, tell us a bit about yourself.
So Ingrid is a mom to two adult children and she's the wife to a very supportive husband. I am one of three siblings that grew up on the Cape Flats with a dad who was the breadwinner and my mom was a housewife. I attended school during a very difficult time in our country. The period 84 to 87, I was at high school, and I think those years contributed to who I would become as a teacher, as well as the role I would play in education. So my mom, as I indicated, was a housewife, but she was the one that drilled into us that education is a tool that would get you out of this kind of area. It could improve your life. And so she was the constant. My dad was the worker, he was the provider. He ensured that all our material needs are met. And she was the one that drilled into us, read, and then you get educated, and then the world is open with possibilities. In grade 11, standard 9 at the time, our country was going through a very difficult time and teachers were out on the streets and we were not in school. And at the school that I was at, a young teacher joined the staff and I'm still in contact with her. She was a Miss Braaf at the time, but she came into the school when I needed someone to help me direct my vision for the future. And she would then contribute to what I would take into the teaching profession. She used education to teach the subject that she taught, which was Afrikaans, but she also just took an interest in us, and she really drilled into us that anything is possible. The world is your oyster. You just need to work hard. And so in grade 11, I was a top accountancy student. I always thought I was going to become an accountant, but God had other plans for me. And so I was privileged to do an internship at a flooring company in Bellville. And I sat in that office for that week, job shadowing. And I thought, this is what I want to do. You only speak to people when you need to. You work with a pen and a paper. I want to work with people. I want to be out there. And then I came back and I went to speak to her and I said to her, do you think I can be a teacher? She said, you can be anything you want to be. And that is how my journey started with a teacher. I'm proud to say that I'm from the Cape Flats. I'm proud to say I'm from Heidelberg. And so my learners at the schools that I taught, I always gave them the privilege in the fourth term to get to know who I am. So my first question would be, where do you think I'm from? And they would give all kinds of areas. And I would say, no, I'm from Heidelberg. I'm from a one-bedroom flat. And I remember very fondly one year, one of the children said to me, no, but that's a duplex, miss, that's not a flat. And they saw it as a duplex, a sign of you owned a flat. But for us, this was a flat I needed to get out of. And my parents still lived there for a very long time. And so I'm very rooted in terms of, I grew up in Heidelberg. My politics was formed in Heidelberg because my mommy's neighbor was very active in the politics, and she would take me with her. And my mother never knew that until only later that she was actually grooming me in terms of politics. And so I remember the day with the purple rain, I had to go home to explain why I was purple, because I was out in the road with Gaino being part of the struggle. So yeah, in a nutshell, I then became a teacher, and I became a teacher in schools in Athlone. So I started at a very, I would say, well-off school in Athlone, and then I moved to a very impoverished school in Bokmakiri. And I always say that this period contributed the greatest to my formation as a teacher. I saw poverty at its worst. I saw the possibility of what education could bring to this community. but it would be the community that formed me strongly as a teacher and then set myself up for moving on. And so I've ascended through the ranks in education, ending off becoming a principal of a primary school in Athlone again, where I then also just had a very good stint in terms of the school being extended into the community. And I loved every minute of it. My time is up there. And then I was elected into the trade union to become the provincial education convener. So I'm full-time in the teacher union, and I'm responsible for teacher training and professional development.
Yeah, that really helps to get some context. Because in our time together, I noticed the real passion for the profession. And you shared some of the stories I mean, you've been impacted by having a teacher sort of help you shape that vision for yourself. Could you share an example where you maybe paid it forward to I think you used that young lady that went to Milan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are many stories. I always say to parents when they bring their children to school, these become my children. You birthed them, and so you've entrusted them to me, so they become my children. So I treat them like my own. What I would want for my biological children, I would want for your children. And so what I would always make reference to my children and our children, and it would later have a ripple effect in the spaces that I occupied, whether I was the departmental head or whether I became the principal of a school. But this particular learner came to me in grade 1 extremely, and she won't mind me saying what I mean to say, she had no social sense of asking, please, may I leave the room, excuse me. And so I was someone that once learners came to me in grade 1, I would ask the principal, can I take him to grade 3? Because I always thought I invested a lot of time teaching them to read. I can't just give them off. I want to see them in grade 3, reading fluently, being able to sound, being able to do mathematics. And she particularly was a very bright girl. And she was always top in the class, but she didn't have the necessary support in terms of parental support at home. I left when she had to go to grade 4. But she still remained in contact with me, would come and visit me at the school where I was the principal. And then later on, she went on to high school. Kept her grades. And then somehow, when she matriculated, she just lost the plot. She became involved with drugs and the societal challenges that the community that she lived in faced. And I was very heartbroken because she was very close to me. I mean, when I invest in children, I invest emotionally, all of who I am, sometimes to the detriment of my family because I bring children home. My husband would then have to make bread for someone else's child. It's not our children.
But you know, Ingrid, sorry to interrupt you. It's often the case in our communities, poverty-stricken communities. They come into school and they're getting their first taste of love and somebody caring for them because of the context which they come from.
Yes.
I think like the example you're using, it's their context which they're coming from, and they're coming to school, and that's their first opportunity for somebody to really care about them and inspire them. So the teacher has that contact point, just like a saving grace from home because of where they come from.
Yeah. So she went off the bandwagon.
This is after matric.
After matric, yeah.
So she comes out of the schooling system now, and now she's
left on her own. She probably, at the time, she didn't have the support I had to direct me in the direction, you know. And then one day she walks in at the school where I'm at, and she said to me, I need help. And I said to her, what kind of help do you need? And she says to me, I have been on TIC for about 3 years. I need help. Can you help me? And I said to her, what kind of help do you need? And she says to me, I need to go to rehab because you said anything is possible. So my words came back to haunt me, and I said to her, let's see what we can do. We then got her into a rehab for about 6 months. She then decided to continue in the rehab because she could stay on voluntary. And then she assisted young people who couldn't read that was at rehab. So that was a year period that she decided to stay in rehab. And then she came back to me and she says to me, I want to do dress designing. And I said to her, okay, where do you want to go to? She says, can you help me find places? And so we get her into the old Hewitt, the College of Cape Town, and she gets in and she starts. And so I keep a hold on her. I keep her going. And I got some other people involved to help her so that we create stability for her. And she then gets a job here in South Africa for one of the local factories, but not in the qualification that she got, because then she graduated in designing at Cape Town College. And then we lose contact for about another 3 to 4 years. And it was 2018 to be exact. She calls me. She didn't call me. I get a Facebook Messenger message. And she says, hi, miss, I need to speak to you. I need your number. And my first response is, are you in trouble? She says, no, just please, I need to speak to you. And I send her my number. And that evening, she calls me. And I will not forget, it was in August of 2018. And I sobbed that night away because she got offered a job in Milan for that fashion week. I sobbed for 2 days consecutively. I went to school the next day and at morning brief, I said to the staff, you won't know her. They say, no, we all know her because you always spoke about her. And I said, this is one of the things, no money can ever repay. That kind of news. And she's successful. She is working across the world. She's working for fashion houses, the companies up there. And she's doing extremely well. And I don't think she's ever going to come back to South Africa.
I think that's just the example of the influence a teacher can have. But at the same time, you could also have negative influences from a teacher.
Yes, I agree.
I remember one teacher saying to me, and it stuck with me for a long time. We were in grade 9, I think, and he said, whatever you are right now, you'll probably be like that in the next 20 years.
Oh, he's eating his words, eh?
But it struck a chord, because I was a bit naughty at school, but it struck a chord with me because you were saying, I can't change. He was telling me, you can't transform. So there you see the impact. Because you're young, you're learning, and then you have somebody, you look up to your teacher, because a teacher represents authority. And so you take your lead from a teacher. So it shows the influence that a teacher has.
You're saying teacher as authority. And sometimes teachers think that children don't want rules. And they want to be children's friends, even at primary school. And I have a firm belief that children want rules. It creates safety nets for them. And it helps them shape how they would act as normal adults post the time that they've been in school. But also we create scene for them post-schooling. And sometimes we forget the influence that we have, or the power of the influence that we have. I have many, many stories. I mean, Jared Ricketts is an example of an ex-learner of mine. Then I have some children that are priests. I have a young girl that's a doctor at the oncology unit at Grooteskiel. And I had a sister-in-law that was very ill. And I see the receptionist says to me, I must speak to the professor just to see how soon we can see your sister-in-law. And the professor comes out and she says, Miss. And the receptionist looks at me and I look at her. And I say to her, Rizal, is that you? And she says, yes, miss. She says, what can I do? How can I help you? And so you then also get this kind of opportunity just to reconnect with young people. And so I have a belief that I don't add my students onto Facebook. But post them leaving school, if they ask for a friend request, I join them. I accept the friend request, and then I say the following. You have asked me to be a Facebook friend. Remember, I still have the right to comment on your life. And so yesterday, in fact, I have a young girl who is into drama, and she did a voiceover for somebody that wrote a book. I sent a message. I said, well done, congratulations, super proud. And she responds on Facebook to say, You are one of the positive influences in my life. So yeah,
It's usually influence.
yeah,
influential.
and that is I if I had to choose over Dalton, I would choose teaching again, over and over again.
I did an event. Sebastian was actually with me, that one. And so I had an opportunity to speak at the event. I mentioned the impact of the profession as a teacher and sort of the contribution to society. This teacher came up to me afterwards, after I gave the talk, and he said, you know, I was an engineer. I could have studied engineering. All my friends went to engineering, they did engineering, and they made lots of money. But I needed to hear that today because the impact that we have, it is huge. And I don't think the profession is respected enough and honored enough. That's just another example of the influence. But you guys need to be reminded of it. I think we need to, as your teachers need to tell their stories because to encourage other teachers to persevere in what they're doing. Because I don't think they get recognized as your engineer and your accountant and your lawyer, you know. So we need to tell those stories to encourage them. And that will probably lead me to my next point. What are the challenges that they face? What are the main challenges that teachers face currently?
So I'll start off to say that education has changed. Communities have changed. Values and norms have changed. Sure. And this then means that the learners that we get into the system are very different. And so many of us in the system have not evolved to accommodate and meet the needs.
So you're saying that in the old school, the kid listened to the teacher? There's
yes.
No, I mean, I remember.
Yes.
You don't, I mean, back then you could get a beating.
Yeah. Yes, which
let's not go into that topic now.
Yes,
but I mean, the point is, it was a different sort of environment and social norms, and how they view teachers. These days is different. Learners completely different.
Very, very different. So teachers get into a school and they are faced with huge classes, and that's especially in the working class communities. They don't have, the schools don't have the privilege of appointing.
What sort of numbers are you talking?
We're looking at, so the norm for primary school is 38:1, and then in high school it's 35:1. So teachers sit with classes of 40 and bigger. And now in the Western Cape, there is a circular called 38 of 2023 that reduced the amount of teachers at schools. So teachers are currently sitting with classes of between 40 and 60, 70 learners. And that in itself has an impact because teachers then struggle with classroom management. And I always say numbers like that is crowd control. You're not actually...
Not teaching.
You're not teaching. And that then brings to the fore learner discipline, because learners then think it's a free for all. And with that, so besides looking at Circular 38 of 2023, classes are generally 40 and 45, big classes. Teachers face the challenges of the workload. Teaching has become administratively heavy for teachers. The lack of parental involvement. There's nothing you can do if a parent is just not interested. Parents will come to you and say, but I can't deal with Dalton, you deal with Dalton. What do I do with Dalton? Dalton, it comes from your home. You should have set acceptable societal norms.
You need to teach and parent at the same time, and counsel.
Exactly. And so teachers are currently sitting with learners that are also needing differentiated learning experiences. And teachers are not trained necessarily. I think part of the training these days are a very small portion of it. And access to services at schools is also very limited. So when I speak about access to services, when I was at school, the school had access to a nurse, a dentist, the clinic came around. You will find a school psychologist is assigned to 29 schools in a certain area. Schools have what we call learning support teachers, and learning support teachers can only work with 6 or 5 children per class, and they're itinerant between schools in our province. So teachers are really, really battling in classes, and this leads to their emotional and social well-being. But learners also come with social emotional baggage that teachers are many times not able to address because of time, the workload and the class size. So the challenges in education at the moment is huge. Further to that, the lack of resource support in schools. Education has evolved and we're still sitting with textbooks in classes. We're still sitting with people that are not able to integrate ICT into schools because there's just not resources. And so teachers are expected to create miracles because learners do not have access to a computer at home, do not have access to data at home.
I'm just thinking about all that, all that the teacher, you got a class of 40 and there's so many roles they need to play. It's not humanly possible.
It's not.
It's not humanly possible. So that probably leads me to my next question. So I did an interview recently. We spoke about if you want any change, you're going to need to collaborate across spheres of society. So you're looking at public, you're looking at civil, you're looking at private, and we need to sort of collaborate. I had the opportunity. I come from a single parent that put me through school, and I went to a very good school. And I understand the privilege that I got, but my class was 140. There were about 25 or 30 in the class. I got attention, and it gave me a good head start. But I understand the resources that were there. And I think people in privilege and businesses, people that come from privilege, we need to contribute and collaborate with those communities. So the collaboration is so important between all classes and all spheres of society to drive that kind of change. Could you maybe just share about that, maybe some good stories of that collaboration or where that has happened or some ideas or thoughts on that?
Businesses are starting to see, besides being corporate social responsibility initiatives, I think businesses are seeing as well as other stakeholders in education, whether it's public, other sectors in the public sector, communities, that they can contribute to education. Because for me, education is a societal matter. Our country can be ruined completely if education is not stable. We produce future leaders, we produce future citizens of this country. And so I feel that business and other stakeholders can leverage off education by bringing in not only financial resources, there's human resources.
Yeah. It's easy to donate, right?
It's easy to donate, but how do
you tick some boxes, CSR boxes?
Yes. How do you measure the impact? How do you measure the impact? For me, one of the journeys I would like to see is business getting involved with schools and actually coaching and mentoring leadership.
Never had that subject at school, leadership. Yeah, as a subject.
As a subject. But sometimes school managers, currently at the moment, any qualified teacher that has gone through the ranks is able to apply for a school manager post. School manager, me being a teacher doesn't mean that I'm going to be a good leader and a good manager.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so for me, there's a missing link that school managers could do with people that are successful in business, leading and managing great companies, just to coach and mentor and do some growth mindset change for school leadership in terms of, so that's not going to cost you money. You coach, you mentor somebody, and you leverage some of the skills that you have to assist
but
the school
manager.
manager.
But they'll say it costs you time. It costs them time. But yeah, no, absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Because it's more sustainable
than
giving a donation.
But you can measure the impact. Because you would be able to measure, you can work together with the school principal and the management team, put projects in place and measure it in a few years' time as the results turn around. So in the country, we have a bargaining council called the Education Labour Relations Management Labour Council. And they've just signed a collective agreement that speaks about labour management partnership that brings labour together. And it's based on a model in America where the Ford company was going through a very difficult time and they collaborated. But other people currently in the model in America is brought in to help improve learner outcomes. So for me, the model is always about how do our children benefit and how do we improve the outcomes of our country's results in comparison to other countries, with partnering with other people. Currently, children in working class communities are struggling with access to ICT. So if you don't want to bring in your leverage of your expertise and your skills, go have a look and see whether the school has a computer lab, something as basic as that. Assist with establishing a STEM club, which is your science, technology, engineering, and maths clubs, because those are key skills that our country needs. You will be contributing towards that. Coding has been introduced as a subject in
I love that
foundation.
story, eh?
In foundation
so it's a
phase,
subject now.
yes,
Yeah.
in foundation phase, which means it's grade R to grade 3, hopefully for implementation next year. But are schools ready? Because all schools would not have the infrastructure for that. How do we contribute to the 2030 skill set that the country needs? And that would be some of the things. Teacher fellowships. Why don't you then sponsor? Teachers are what we call the middle class earners. And many of us are sponsoring because our children don't have access to bursaries, to NSFAS. So many of us are funding our children privately. And so you can't continue your own professional development by doing postgraduate studies because your priority is these children that you brought into the world. And teachers need to stay current. How do they stay current? By participating in professional development opportunities, whether it's a short course, whether it is a qualification. Why don't you invest in something like that? A bursary scheme for teachers, but also offering mentorship programs for learners in grade 8 and 9. And I mean to justify why I say grade 8 and 9. Learners make subject choices in grade 10. And they sometimes make subject choices that they regret in grade 12 because they did not have a Carl and Daniels that journeyed with them in terms of the choices that they make. And so they get to at the end of grade 12 when they realize the package that I've chosen is not going to get me into tertiary education. I'm not able to meet the scores that the university requires. I don't have a sense of what career to follow. And therefore, my suggestion or my idea is in offer job shadowing for children in grade 8 and 9 so that they can see what is out there. So again, it's about the time that you need to invest in a young person. But I'm sure if you invest in a young person, you would be able to go to your grave with your conscience clear that you've contributed to someone and making a change in someone's life without having stood in front of a class, but giving a young adult access into a space that he or she would normally not have had access to. For me, I'm very passionate about grade R and access to grade R. So there is a new bill that is currently on the President's table, which is called the Bala Bill, that is just awaiting his signature. And one of the things speaks about compulsory access for grade R learners, which means it's those 5-year-old learners that are outside of formal education. Because currently, compulsory education is from grade 1 to grade 9. So with this bill that's going to be signed, it's going to mean that compulsory education is going to be from grade R. So grade R is not formal education. Quite a bit of resources is required. Our children in working class communities do not know how to build puzzles because there's just not money to buy a puzzle. Something as basic as playing in sand. Our children do not play in parks because parks are not safe. So many of the schools will need parks very soon because children need to do outdoor play. And what skills are built during outdoor play is the gross motor and the fine motor movements. So there are quite a bit of things that you can get involved in.
And I'm just listening to you. There are many solutions. There's resource constraints. And the way to get around those things, you have to collaborate.
Yes. Yes.
But you have to collaborate. You got to connect different people, and everybody's got to be on board. Because collaboration is the way for transformation. It's the only way. It's not possible for the teacher to carry that kind of load on their own. It's not possible for SADTU to carry their load on their own.
Yeah, I believe that school extends beyond the classroom walls. Schools extend beyond the fence of a school. And as soon as you start thinking that it extends beyond that, it means that you allow other people in. So that speaks to collaboration. And I think if you're a leader and you're visionary, that should be one of your visions as a school leader, as a teacher in a class. And I had a principal that used to say, and he's 70 and I'm still in contact with him, he used to say, the first time I walked into a school, he said to me, you do not come to my office to complain. You're the captain of that ship. That is your castle. you are in control. You are the king. You are the queen. There are certain rules in which you operate, but you determine and you set the agenda for that classroom. And I'm of the view that anything is possible.
I'm going to be a bit controversial.
Will
here,
it be
but-
controversial?
I'm just thinking, so like you're saying 40 plus in a class. The school that we work with, they're struggling to get tutors for maths, and so we're trying to get tutors in to help them. But I'm just thinking about some of the schools, the privileged schools, which I come from, where it's 20 to 25, I don't know if it's 30 or more now, but offering some of their time to go and tutor in the communities after hours on a Saturday. I'm just thinking. My point is that we've got to contribute. I think that's the main thing, and we've got to collaborate.
You know, and I'm going to be controversial now. Many former Model C schools think that when they donate sandwiches, they are helping an underprivileged school or school in a working class community. But there's more. I could go into community. I have a skill set that the community could benefit from after hours. And I always say, I live in a certain area, but a certain area in education will always remain close to me. If I must go back to Athlone to go teach children how to read and write, because that is what I'm qualified to do and that I'm passionate about doing about it, I will go and do it. And so...
But sending sandwiches, that's not going to...
Or stationary drive, that is how people in the education sector are seeing how we are able to assist. And that's our contribution to education. And it's not about that. When I was principal at this particular school, I got our own children and my own colleagues to see that outreach is not confined to our school. We can't just be keeping our hands open. We must extend it. And so every term we would also have something like an outreach. We had a bridge, I'm sure you know the bridge in Athlone where the vagrants lived. One year there was a project where the teachers and the learners worked together on making blankets out of newspapers in plastic with messages on that we took down to the vagrants. And if you go onto the school's Facebook page, you'll see it. So it is something that teachers took as a project, but we used the learners from the various communities that we have so that they could extend the program in their own communities and not only at school. So I think there's quite a possibility, lots of possibilities in schools, and it's not a one-way process. It's always 2 ways, 3 ways, many ways that you could do it. I was always very excited when children got opportunities for sports because the school that I was at didn't lend itself in terms of access to sports grounds. And so Western Province approached the school to ask whether we would like the children to play rugby. And I was very excited because the children could go in Thornton Road to City Park and go play there. And I would on a Wednesday, I would clear my schedule and I would go down and I would be on that rugby field. And one day the guy from Western Province said to me, "Your children are walking away from this game thinking they are the best." I said, yes, they must believe they are the best. But what happened out of that was that a relationship was built with City Park. Because the school could then use it for sporting events, for our family days. And so, like you say, it's not only about business, it's about communities, it's community organizations. And so my appeal today would be that we all see education as a societal issue and see what it is that you can contribute. It's not always about the money.
Your encouragement to business, to all spheres of society, and also to teachers, maybe just encourage. I think that's a good point too.
Yeah, so this morning, I want to say to everybody that's interested in education, whether you're an educator, whether you're a school manager, whether you're official in department, education is a societal matter. And so don't think that you're isolated in a corner. I'm sure each one of you could bring a skill set, you could contribute in many ways to ensure that our country reaches the outcomes that education is intended to reach, which is to ensure that we have critical, independent thinkers that can have a skill set that they are able then to take up the position in our country. To my fellow colleagues in education, I don't know whether education chose you or whether you chose education. Education chose me to enter into the sector, into the profession, to make a difference. That is what I believe. I believe that each one of you standing in front of a class, you don't only teach, you inspire. I believe that you are dealers in hope. You can give a child that was completely deflated, demotivated, the hope to see that anything is possible, that they can achieve anything that is possible. And then to my fellow colleagues in education, teachers, administrators, school managers, it's tough out there. Please take care of yourself, create a balanced life by separating your professional life from your personal life. Create you time. Surround yourself with positive professionals that think like you, and then collaborate with people and work with people. We all can help each other. We all bring something to the party. And I have a quote of Helen Keller that I believe in. It says, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. I want you tomorrow or whenever you walk into a class to make children believe that you love them, because sometimes we're the only person that tells them that we love them or that we care for them. And so the future of our country is in your hands. Teachers, you can make a difference. And I have another slogan that says, be mad, go and make a difference in our country, in our society, in our schools, and in our classrooms.
Thank you, Ingrid. That was powerful. Maybe a challenge to you and your union. I think you guys need to tell your stories more. I think that's just a challenge for you and your structures. You need to tell your stories more and get it out there to teachers and for the profession. We need to do more of it. So that's just a challenge. Thank you for your time and willing to collaborate with us. It's a partnership that I'm looking forward to build on. And just thank you for everything you're doing. Keep up the good work. I know it doesn't always get recognized, but keep it up, and you are impacting generations.
Thank you, Dalton.
Yeah.
Thank you for your vision and your commitment to transform lives. It's commendable for people that are in your space and in your age group to still believe that our country, there's hope, that we can make a change, that things can become better. And times are going to be difficult ahead, but we must just persevere and surround ourselves with people that think like us and that has the same vision for our country.
I like that. Dealers of hope. It's a cool one. So just the end for today, just again, encouragement for everyone, wherever you find yourselves, let's just contribute. Contribute wherever station you find yourself in life. Make a difference, reach out. And like Ingrid said, let's all focus on nation building because we use this beautiful country. And just in closing, remember, in our business, we are relational and not transactional. Thank you.